This is Brew City Lounge.
Answers back. His first bucket of the fourth quarter. And now with 36 for the game.
Yelich sends this one out to center. Bader racing back. He looks up and it is gone. Christian Yelich goes deep.
This podcast is for the number one Bucks fans and Brewers fans in the world and is part of the Lounge Room Network.
Fielder launches. Prince Fielder. Ball game. Giannis got the rebound. Good and one. Wow, he's so strong.
Here's your host, Brandon Snide. Hey guys, welcome to another fun and, as always, exciting episode of the Brew City Lounge podcast. I am your host, Brandon. Please go ahead and follow me on Twitter at Wisco_Brandon. And please, as always, I ask you every show, please do it. Go ahead and jump on Facebook and Twitter. Follow the show at Brew City Pod. I am very, very excited to have you tuning in. If you are on the live stream, thank you guys for tuning in on this gorgeous Milwaukee afternoon. If you are listening on your smart device, wherever you may be, thank you so much for giving the show a listen. It is an absolute honor and privilege to be here talking about our favorite teams with you. Of course, I am talking about those Milwaukee Bucks and those Milwaukee Brewers. Lots and lots to talk about, lots to break down. What a phenomenal weekend for the city of Milwaukee, for the fans of Milwaukee, as the Bucks get revenge against those annoying Miami Heat and also the Brewers down in Washington. They sweep the Nationals with a doubleheader on Saturday and finish them off on Sunday. And they had a phenomenal game, a game that I was actually fortunate enough to go to yesterday for Memorial Day. They won in extras. That is now 5 straight wins for our Milwaukee Brewers. So it's exciting to see the city of Milwaukee have a little bit of success, a little bit of a roll here as of late. Could have been arguably maybe one of the best weekends that I can remember in Milwaukee sports history. Now, they didn't win a championship and, you know, whatever it was, but you're talking about a stretch of the Bucks sweeping the Miami Heat Saturday, and the Brewers not losing a game all weekend in a stretch of 4 days where they played 5 games was a phenomenal stretch of baseball for those Milwaukee Brewers. It's exciting to see them start to get on a little bit of a roll, I think, at least. So I'm excited about that. Look ahead with the Nets. I'm assuming the Bucks are going to end up playing the Nets, so we're going to kind of break that down. I will be joined here probably any minute by the legendary Chuck Friemund of 97.3 The Game. He's going to join me shortly. But before we do get into all the good stuff that did happen over the weekend, I just want to make an announcement that the Brew City Lounge podcast officially has its own merchandise. The link is posted on our Facebook and our Twitter feeds. Please jump on over there. And check it out. All kinds of merchandise, hats, T-shirts, sweaters, all kinds of good stuff. But like I promised you guys, joining me now, brought to you by the good folks over at One Call Technology. Go ahead and give them a call at 888-585-8850 for all your business telecom needs. Mr. Chuck Friemund of 97.3 The Game out of Milwaukee. Please go ahead and do yourself a favor and follow him on Twitter at Chuck Friemund. Chuck, I called you legendary, Mr. Friemund. Thank you so much. I'm excited to have you on the show. Thank you, as always, for joining me. How you doing today?
Well, I'm doing great. Did I catch you right in the middle of your show?
No, I just kicked off.
Okay.
I bring the guests on. I do like my intro. And then I bring the guests on as I kind of ease into it, and that way, there's no awkwardness to the show. But welcome. It's your first time on the Brew City Lounge podcast. I cover the Bucks and the Brewers, and I was just talking in my intro. Not, maybe this is a little bit of a stretch, but better than anybody. One of the best weekends that I can remember in Milwaukee sports, with the Bucks sweeping the Miami Heat on Saturday, finishing them off. And then the Milwaukee Brewers winning, 5 straight games. They won, swept the Washington Nationals and obviously extra innings yesterday. What were your thoughts on the weekend?
Oh, I thought it. First of all, thank you for having me on the show. I appreciate it, Brandon. I know we tried to hook up in the past and couldn't do it. And by the way, I heard you had Johnny Mack on the show the other day. Is that true?
I did. Chuck, you are. Yes, you're. I think the show right after Johnny Mack. So
okay,
you got some shoes to fill, and I know you've had him at your time over on 12:15. I know you've talked to him. What a phenomenal guy! I mean, he's phenomenal.
Let me tell you, we both lived in Greendale for a while. When I was a kid growing up in Greendale, I played Little League with his son, Shannon. And his daughter went to Greendale High School, Megan was a terrific high school basketball player in the early 90s. But John, when I was in high school, John would play pickup games at Greendale High School. They'd have open gym over at Greendale. He paid like $1 to go in on a Saturday afternoon from noon to 2. And John would show up from occasion. And, John was in his 40s. I'm this high school kid, this hotshot high school kid, thinks he knows everything and is good at, and is going to play in the NBA someday. So I'm guarding John McLaughlin. I'm like, this old guy, I'll take him. He had his day. Oh, he destroyed me. He was like 44, 45.
Yep.
I was trying to hit shot. He was stroking it from 25 feet out. I'm like, people were saying, dude, you better get out on him. And I said, yes. He ate me for lunch, dinner, breakfast, and everything else. But, John's a good guy. He's Mr. Buck. He's lived and died with this franchise. I remember him as a player. His broadcasting days going back to Eddie Doucette. I don't know if you remember Eddie Doucette, Brandon. But
I do. Yep. Matt Fun. Yep.
Yes, exactly. He started Matt Fun with the great Eddie Doucette. But, it's an honor to be following Johnny Mack, who loves the Lake Country now. But we both I grew up in Greendale, but I grew up with his kids.
Yeah, and I got into texting with him prior to the show, and I he was asking like questions like most people do. How long do you expect to have? And I told him like 15, 20 minutes. He stayed on, Chuck, for an hour. It was some of the best. We went obviously all the way back to his playing days, and then all the way up to some George Karl stories, which are phenomenal.
Okay.
And then we went into, the new era, where they are now, where he sees the franchise. And I told him, and I thought how special it was for him to get onto the TV broadcast with Jim Paschke, who we wish well on his retirement. Obviously, the Bucks swept the Heat, so he is done with the TV broadcasts. And I told him how special it was to see them back together, doing a game together. And because I was raised in the 90s. I grew up in the 90s. So that was my
bad
era.
Basketball, Brandon.
my era was a lot of bad basketball, but a lot of, the Bucks would be down by 10 and there'd be a minute left and John McLaughlin would be, well, you just get a stop here and a score here.
That was this thing. Oh, they're going to stop here and a stop here and a stop here. It never happened. But he was always optimistic.
So we had a lot of good conversation about that. But I do want to let the listeners know real quick, and I didn't even run this by you, Chuck. So I might catch you off guard here. Chuck has been first off, you're one of my favorites on the radio, and I used to call in for everybody that's listening. It was the Chuck and Wicked show. Over at 1250, 2014-ish. And they used to take my calls while I was serving in Afghanistan. And because I would listen to you guys, no matter, yes. we were on like I think a 6 or 7 hour difference or whatever. But I would make sure, before I was going to bed, I would tune into you guys and I would make sure I listened. And then you guys took my calls while I was over in Afghanistan. So I thank you for that. I know it probably takes you back a little bit of a ways, but just a fun story.
Well, I just thought it was great. First of all, thank you for fighting for our country and defending and putting your life on the line every single second of your life over there. That's amazing. And the fact that you had you took time out to give us a call, 2 radio guys doing a morning show. We just thought that was just outstanding. I speak for Wicked on that too. We just thought that was great. We talked about it afterwards. even off the air. No, I mean really, because you're going over there, and you're putting your life on the line every second of the day, and and to take time out of your time to give us a call, we really appreciate it. And I enjoyed, Mike and I were two different people, but somehow we made it work. Mike and I made it work. And if you don't, Wicked is, he's got 3 kids. He's living in Des Moines now. I never saw that happening.
I didn't either. I didn't. If you would have told me that 6 years ago, I would have told you you're lying.
But I enjoyed working with him. I did. We had a fun time together. I was sad to see him go, but so goes the radio business. But I remember those calls vividly, and that was amazing. Because at first we're like, "Oh, is he really calling from Afghanistan?"
I know. I was actually I had Bart on a few weeks ago, Bart Winkler, and and he used to screen the calls, and he used to ask me. We were making a joke about it. He'd be like, "Are you really in Afghanistan?" And I was like, "Hey, I'll send you a picture if you need to."
Sure.
But no, it's just it's great to have you on.
And you said you hate to you don't want to throw a surprise at me. Hey, I work with Bart for 4 hours a day. It was a surprise every second of the day.
That's extremely true. If anybody that is listening to the show and knows Bart Winkler knows that Chuck is on the money with that. So let's dive right into it. The Bucks. We'll start with the Bucks, if you don't mind. We'll talk a little bit of Bucks, a little bit of Brewers. And what were your thoughts? So I had David Ramil from Locked On Heat podcast. He came on the show prior to the Bucks and the Heat kicking off. He picked the Miami Heat in 6. I said from the start the Bucks were going to win in 5. I honestly can sit here and tell you I did not expect a sweep. But what were some of your quick takeaways from that series?
The Heat didn't off the top. The Heat didn't hit shots. Some of their stars didn't play as well as we thought, or I thought, and I thought defensively. The Bucks lit them up in one of those regular season games for 144. And I thought Brandon get to the playoffs, half-court game, and the Bucks just demolished them in every facet of the game. Miami showed zero pride in that series. And they played terrible. I don't know what Tyler Hero's future is going to be, but my gosh, I just thought, but credit the Bucks. The Bucks went out there, and I think I've done a 180 on Chris Middleton, Brandon. I was like one of these guys, like so many Bucks fans, just down on Middleton. I love his game, I do, and I think his mindset is he's gotten stronger as far as mentally or tough, more mentally tough out there, and I think I would be surprised if we ever saw the old Chris Middleton who disappears in big games. I thought he stepped up, and I love the way he played, and I love how smooth he is on the court. So it's a big hey. If we're gonna go where we want to go, he's got to play well. But I just thought Miami caved, and the Bucks went out there and destroyed them. And now the Bucks move on and probably are going to play Brooklyn next.
Yeah, and I'm assuming. I think we're all assuming that it's going to be Brooklyn. But the narrative going into that series was obviously, Jimmy was talking, that he's locked in, whatever. You got guys like Duncan Robinson and Goran Dragic, who for whatever reason he always kills the Bucks. Bam last year,
not this series though.
Not this series, but I don't necessarily say, well, Miami didn't just hit shots, because yes, they did not just hit shots. Mike Budenholzer did a little bit of tinkering, I think, with the matchups that he did. Now, I went back and watched the 3 regular season games this year against the Miami Heat, and each one of those games, the Milwaukee Bucks, if there was a pick and pop with Goran or Duncan or Tyler Hero, the Bucks were dropping below that screen. Now, this series, it was completely different. Giannis was on Duncan Robinson's, hip. You had Drew Holiday following Goran, and they were going around those screens. They were going over the top of them. I honestly think I can sit here comfortably and say that Mike Budenholzer outcoached Eric Spoelstra. He made the adjustments that we did not see in the regular season. Now, a lot of it was, they were switching more on defense than any team in the NBA. They were, adjusting to getting, acquiring PJ Tucker. I don't think that Bucks fans, and myself included, realized how good Drew Holiday would have been as an upgrade over Eric Bledsoe. But I think, yes, Miami missed a lot of shots. But I think a lot of that credit goes to obviously Mike Budenholzer, but that Bucks defense was suffocating. Jimmy Butler could not. He was never comfortable. The best game he had was 19 points, and he had the worst plus or minus in his career in that game. He played 40 minutes. And so I agree with you. I think Miami did miss a lot of shots, but I think a lot of that, most of that, 80% of that was caused by the defense that Mike Budenholzer had set up and the matchups that they were creating.
No, I'd agree with that. Late in the year, I thought the Bucks defense was just awful. There was a game against Washington, I think Sacramento in there. They were just they're giving 130, 140 points, and I thought, and I put out on Twitter that I man, how is this team going to play in the postseason if right now just looking awful? I think it too. The regular season, so many guys. And the Lakers, and you look around the league. Some of these teams that were resting guys and the so-called injuries. What can you take for the regular season? I know you said you went back watched those 3 games, and Butler didn't play in that final game. But these guys. I'm wondering if that was a mistake on some of these teams just to be resting guys. And I think the Lakers are no longer favored to win the West. And, I think Phoenix wins again tonight. But I maybe that's the case. How much can we take out of the regular season? I think there's always been, Brandon, teams, a lot of fans don't take a lot of what happens during the regular season, doesn't give it too much credence. I think even less so now because, those regular season games that they're playing, it was like every night. Oh, who's playing? Oh, LeBron's not playing. Oh,
yeah, I know.
Playing. Oh, Middleton's
for sure.
out. Oh, the Bucks are resting 8. Bucks are resting 8 guys. But here in the postseason, like I thought in the playoffs, the Knicks. I thought the Knicks were. When I saw them in the regular season, I thought because they were not. Thibodeau's not resting anybody, and they were going out and destroying everybody and winning games and all that. I thought, oh, the Knicks are going to be something else, and they're going to get knocked out by Atlanta. But I don't know how much I put in the regular season, even less now because of these guys, these coaches, these teams, these players just resting. And, Miami did it with Jimmy Butler and a few other guys during the regular season too. But the Bucks, I really like their chances now on moving forward. And I do like their chances if it is the Brooklyn Nets. People are scared of the Nets. Not me. I think the Bucks can match up well with those guys.
I think if there's a team, no matter you could bring the Lakers into it, you could bring Phoenix into it, you could say Philly. If there's a team, if you pull Brooklyn into a locker room and you're like, who do you not want to play? It's the Milwaukee Bucks, and there's a few reasons why. Number one, they can't guard Giannis. There's nobody on that team, on that roster, in that building, in that city that can guard Giannis. You're not, Blake Griffin's not going to do it. Giannis has shown that multiple times. It's not going to be DeAndre Jordan. It's not going to be Kevin Durant doesn't want to play defense. So, and then the other thing is, if you watch this Boston-Brooklyn series, Brooklyn's they're doing whatever they want, offensively. I think that's going to change in round 2. And obviously we're suggesting that Brooklyn's going to, probably win tonight. They play Boston tonight, but yeah, you're not. Yeah, name somebody from Boston. I don't know, whoever. Fournier. He's not. PJ. He's not. PJ Tucker is different. He's not. Kevin Durant's going to be looking over his shoulder, and at any point in time, he's going to have He's going to have Giannis or PJ Tucker guarding him. He's not going to have these free looks, these open looks, catching the ball in space. It's the defense for the Milwaukee Bucks is what, in my opinion, is what's going to propel them to win that series. I do think they win that series. And you look at a lot of different, everybody going into the Miami series was like, oh,
and I think that's what hurts Brooklyn.
Right. Yeah. No, I agree. And the thing that drives me nuts with Bucks fan, and obviously as a guy that's worked in Milwaukee for quite some time, the roster from last year to this year is completely different. I mean, you're talking about, you heard a lot about Miami fans and NBA fans in general talking about, Bryn Forbes, had the series of his lifetime, career, which is crazy because a fun fact about Bryn Forbes, his season 3-point average is 45.2%. In that series against the Miami Heat, he shot 48%, which is equivalent to one extra make per game. That's Bryn Forbes. We didn't have that last year. The looks that Bryn Forbes is getting were the same looks that Kyle Korver was getting and Marvin Williams, and they just couldn't hit him.
No. Well,
so I think guys hitting their shots it's going to be important. Obviously, you hope that Bryn Forbes is able to keep, the pace that he's on, but I think you will. I think you're going up against a team that really doesn't like to play a whole lot of defense and eventually playing the Brooklyn Nets, in my opinion. Do I got you or did I lose you?
Yeah, Forbes has been phenomenal. I mean, he has. I mean, the guy. No, I you were cutting off. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you. I got you. Can you hear me? We are having a little bit of some connection issues with Mr. Chuck Friemund.
Hey,
Hopefully
5 bars.
There we go.
My phone here. Okay.
I got you right there. Yeah. And I think we might have lost him.
Now?
I got you now.
Oh, what the hell? And there's what's that? I'm doing a podcast. How's that?
We are.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you. Oh, maybe not. Well, like I said, going into the series with the Brooklyn Nets, there was 3 keys to this Milwaukee Bucks team sneaking out a victory against the Brooklyn Nets. Number 1 was Eric Spoelstra versus Mike Budenholzer. What adjustments were going to be made if they needed to be made, and what adjustments were not going to be made. We saw that early on in the series. Obviously, Jimmy Butler catches the ball to start that game 1, and Giannis was following him from the start of game 1. So, Eric Spoelstra made the adjustments that, but Mike Budenholzer made the adjustments that Eric Spoelstra was not. I think the biggest adjustment Eric Spoelstra made was he went from a man to a zone and back and forth to try to clog the lane. But again, when Pat Connaughton and Bryn Forbes and Chris Middleton averaged 21.5 points per game in that series against the Miami Heat. That's huge with guys like, Giannis being able to create shots and create openings for those games. There's a couple of games that Giannis had double-digit assists. I mean, he was absolutely huge in getting those guys not only open, but for those guys to be hitting those shots. So I thought that was big. And my number 2 key was Drew Holiday. I told you guys from the time I started this show about a month and a half ago that the impact and the upgrade that Drew Holiday was going to have over Eric Bledsoe. I am not taking anything away from Eric Bledsoe. He has been on an all-NBA defense. He's a phenomenal player. We were craving for Eric Bledsoe for years before the Bucks eventually went out and got him. But Drew Holiday is that much better than Eric Bledsoe. Eric Bledsoe last year, and you can go all the way back into the 2019 team, struggled in the playoffs. He struggled from scoring outside the paint. He struggled from getting that shot. He could not really create his own shot. So getting him, having that upgrade from Eric Bledsoe to Drew Holiday was absolutely huge. And my number 3 key was the guys that had to hit their shots. Giannis had to be the guy. He showed, he was pretty darn good. 23.5 points per game, and he averaged 15 rebounds in that series, which was absolutely monstrous. And guys had to hit their shots. That was my 3rd key. Guys had to hit their shots. I just want to check, Chuck, do you got me right now? All right, still a little bit lagging there on Chuck. That's all right. We'll get it figured out here shortly. But those are my 3 guys.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I got you. I think we're on a little bit of a delay here with the cell phone. And I think we're still on a little bit of a.
It's funny because I have 5 bars here, I'm right outside.
I can. Are you
right
outside?
Field.
Oh, are you covering the game tonight? I actually, when I go to Brewers games, I was actually there.
Just outside in the media parking lot here.
Yeah, I was there yesterday for a game, and for whatever reason, my phone shows 5G, but my service is just really weird. It's spotty. It goes in and out. I don't know if it's the antennas and all the connections out at AmFam. I don't know. It could be just bad luck. But
five bars here.
Yeah, I can hear you. We started off really good. I don't know what something happened down the line. But if you can hear me and you want to just go over some things you took away from that series with the Heat and see if we're
you're cutting out. It's because it's not a.
I'm still not grabbing you here. I'm still losing you.
I have 5 bars in my end, and it.
That's all right. We can always reconnect. On another show. I don't want to hold you back from getting to AmFam or whatever it is you need to do. I don't know if check my connections here, but it looks like I'm pretty good here now.
Well, you want to try calling me?
Do you want to? I'll let you go. Why don't you click the link and come right back in? Did you hear that? I'll release you from the show, okay. And if you want to click that link and come back in, okay. So as we wait for Chuck, we're going to just kind of go over a little bit of the things that were important in this series. Now the Bucks absolutely destroyed the Miami Heat 3 out of 4 games. Only one of those games being close. It was a game 1, and that was also a game where the Bucks shot 5 for 31 from the 3-point range. Now that's not going to happen every single game. That was a clear sign early in that series that I knew the Bucks would eventually win. Now, a lot of people after that game 1 were kind of on the fringes, back and forth about it's going to be harder than we thought. The Bucks struggled. Look, Duncan Robinson started off that game 3 from 3. I believe he was 3 from 3 in the first just few minutes. So it was pretty indicative how that series was going to go with the Milwaukee Bucks and the Miami Heat. Now we have Chuck Friemund joining us back. I want to make sure I got him. Can you hear me? Can you hear me pretty good? Nothing yet. Looks like we're.
Can you hear me?
Still okay. There you go. I think we're on a little bit of a delay here with each other. That's okay though. We can make it work.
Yeah.
But no, what were some of the things that you took away from the series? Now, obviously,
modern technology has not.
It's not made it easier. That's for sure. It never seems to. All right, we're still running into a little bit of an issue here.
There we go.
Well,
are we okay
there we
now?
Go. I hear you. I got you. Any better?
All the time, but it was usually out in the air. The microphone had a short in it. You never knew if we were on the air.
Yeah, I noticed with the AmFam field. I don't know if you heard me last time we disconnected. I was actually there yesterday. I was. What a phenomenal game to go to weather-wise. I paid mine. I got wired internet here, so I have the luxury of having a somewhat solid connection for the most part. But I was at the game yesterday. And it was just a phenomenal. I mean, number one, the weather couldn't have been more perfect. Honestly, it was absolutely beautiful outside. And then the game was phenomenal. I was excited to watch Corbin Burns. I wouldn't say it was his best game. He pitched 6 innings, allowed 1 run, 6 hits. But he got himself out of a couple jams early, which was positive to see with the offense still waiting to catch up. But what are some of your thoughts, if you can hear me right now, what are some of your thoughts with the Milwaukee Brewers?
Well, I think the Brewers on a little bit of a winning streak right here, and the offense has got to get going here. Brandon, I think they will. I love the addition of Willie Adamas at shortstop. I think he helps his team and so many different leadership. We had the big game last week. I mean, you look at that 1, 2, 3 in the Brewer rotation. You saw one yesterday with Corbin Burns, and the way Woodruff is put his name, the Cy Young. I always say this about players in our state. I feel like we win all the Cy Young MVPs and we win the Rookie of the Years, but I want championships, Brandon.
Yeah,
let's win us some championships. But I think we're in. You look at the top 3 in that rotation; they are outstanding. I'll take the top 3 and what they've done against anybody in baseball. I think this is going over here next door at the AmFam Field. Is our better place to be in June, July, and August, right, than what you saw yesterday at AmFam Field. The offense, I think, is going to come around. I think eventually is. They're managing Yelich's innings and all that, and I think we're going to have. I think the offense come around. Like teams like Detroit. Detroit's one of the keep rolling and I separate themselves from the 500 mark, and I think the best team in the division. I think they're better than St. Louis, they're better than else. I think they're going to win the division and go to the postseason.
Yeah, and I tend to agree. Prior to the season, I did I started the podcast like the first couple of weeks into the season. So I did a little bit of a preview of the Milwaukee Brewers. You got me okay? All right. I think we're still having some technical.
Yeah, I mean, a little bit. There's a delay, but we can see what we hear.
Yeah, so I did a little bit of a preview with the Milwaukee Brewers. I started the show in the middle of April, I believe it was. So the season had already started. The Brewers right now sitting at 29-25, 1.5 games out of that first place spot that currently is holding with the Chicago Cubs. Now the Brewers did win 6 out of 9 against this Cubs team early into the season. I don't know how much how much stock people put into early April baseball, but yes, the Brewers, as a Brewer fan too, for the longest time, it seems like we were never able to not only produce but to bring up starting pitching. If we had a young guy down in the farm system, we were never able to usher him into the major leagues and become an ace. And now the Brewers have done that, not only with 1, not 2, but maybe 3 guys that can compete for a Cy Young. I mean, Freddie Peralta right now with a 5.1 record with a 2.38 ERA, who's absolutely just been dominant, had the complete game on Saturday against the Washington Nationals. The Brewers did sweep the Nationals over the weekend. They have won 5 in a row. Since that Willie Adamas trade, this Brewers team is 8-2. Do you find any connection with that? I mean, do you think that maybe, I don't know if it put a spark into this Brewers team? I don't know. I mean, Willie Adamas he's phenomenal with the Brewers so far. He's over 300 batting average. He's got a 410 on base percentage, and his slugging percentage is almost 600. I mean, I think, from an energy standpoint, I think he brought a little bit of something to this Milwaukee Brewers team. But I think from an on-field production, especially at the plate, I think he was a huge addition. I didn't like the trade at first because of the bullpen that you were depleting after you just traded Arcia like 5-6 weeks prior to that. But what are some of your thoughts on the Adamas acquisition and what you've seen with him so far? Still not hearing. You got me at all? Check 1, 2, 3.
It seemed to be a bizarre trade at the time because Arcia for Urias and
having some more connection issues with Chuck Friemund. Not sure if you can hear me at all. There you go.
And then the internet gremlins got us.
I don't know. I know I told you before, my phone out at AmFam just doesn't always seem to be the best. So maybe that could be something that is causing a little bit of disruption here with our connection. I'm not sure what it could be.
Yeah, I got great reception right here.
Yeah, when we first started the show, I heard you. I mean, you were perfect. You were, in live and in person, and now we're having a little bit of a delay and a little bit of a frozen screen here on you. So I don't know if it's something on the StreamYard here that I use, or if it's a connection issue somewhere else. But I just checked my internet connection, and I am cooking with gas right now, so I'm not sure what it could be.
Yeah, I don't know.
But,
I like I said, I have five bars where I live in Lamar.
That's all right. Do you want to?
Did you want to try later or tomorrow?
Yeah, why don't I message you, and maybe we can get together later on this week or even next week, if that works for you.
We were good for the first 15 minutes. This was going good.
I know. I don't know. I don't know what happened,
sure.
But unfortunately, that's technology, I guess.
Sorry,
I'll shoot you a message, and we'll get linked back up.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Chuck. Everybody, that's Chuck Friemund. Please follow him on Twitter at Chuck Friemund. You can listen to him on 97.3 The Game.
I think
Thank you, Chuck.
A good thing you're doing here. What I like is Brew City Lounge.
It fits. I think it fits, especially with the two teams that we have in the city, and hopefully for the sake of the whole city, state, and fandom, that we get a championship in this city. So we thank Chuck. Unfortunately, if you guys are listening, there was obviously some type of technical difficulty, so I do apologize for that. I will get Chuck back on at a later date, and we'll go from there. But I did want to just go back. We got about 25 minutes or so left of the show, and kind of revamp the show here a little bit and kind of go a different direction. Now, the Milwaukee Bucks did sweep the Miami Heat, which was an absolute domination from the start to finish. Game 1 was, like I said previously, the only close game in that series, and that, again, was won on a late Chris Middleton 2-point shot made with 0.5 seconds left. Prior to the game, I kind of went over a couple of things that I thought this Milwaukee Bucks team needed to do in order to win and beat the Miami Heat. Number one, it was Erik Spoelstra versus Mike Budenholzer, the coaching matchup. Now, coaching in the NBA might not be as important as it was 20, 30, 40 years ago, but it holds a little bit of weight, in my opinion. Now, we know Mike Budenholzer. There's a couple things about Mike Budenholzer. He's set in his ways. He comes from the Greg Popovich tree line. He no matter what game it is, no matter what playoff series it is, if it's the first round or the Eastern Conference Finals, Mike Budenholzer is going to do what he always does. So going into the series, I was curious to see if he was going to make adjustments. Was he going to play Giannis over 30 minutes? Was he going to play Middleton over 30 and Drew Holiday and get that big three and a little bit of a playoff atmosphere, obviously, and get him going a little bit more than he had in the past? And the answer to those were, in my opinion, like I stated a little bit ago with Chuck Friemund, the Mike Budenholzer outcoached Erik Spoelstra, and I really don't think it was totally close. Now, everybody will sit there and say, well, he doesn't have Giannis, he doesn't have Drew Holiday. I get that. I understand that. But there's still things, in my opinion, that Erik Spoelstra was outcoached on. The biggest change that Erik Spoelstra did throughout that series was he went from a man-to-man to a 2-3 zone to try to stop the penetration with Giannis and Drew Holiday. It didn't matter. I mean, it really didn't. Guys like Bryn Forbes, guys like Pat Connaughton, came out, they hit their shots. Again, going to my third key in this spot, I'm going to skip over 2 and jump to the third key. And that was literally written down. Guys hit shots. ! Guys hit shots. Hit your shots. You're going to find the ball in your hands open. We know this as Milwaukee Bucks fans, as people that follow this team. Giannis is going to get double, triple teamed, and guys are going to be open. Now, everybody made a big stink that Bryn Forbes had the series of his life and he'll never shoot that good again. what's crazy about Bryn Forbes, and if you are just joining, we had Chuck Friemund on. We had a little bit of a technical difficulties, and he dropped off. So we're going to get that show rescheduled. But Bryn Forbes, season 3-point average to 2020 to 2021 season, this latest season, he was a 45.2% 3-point shooter. Against this Miami Heat team, he shot 16 out of 33 for a 48.5%. That's equivalent, ladies and gentlemen, to just one extra shot made. This is Bryn Forbes. This is exactly what we knew coming from the acquisition of the signing him in the offseason with off the San Antonio Spurs. We knew that this guy was a career 40% 3-point shooter. We knew that what we would get out of him. We didn't necessarily see it all year. Adam drops in a comment. Adam, Noah, my dad is on there. Thank you guys for tuning into the live feed. I appreciate it. Good afternoon, I believe. Yeah, 4:30 is afternoon. So yeah, thanks for tuning in. So yes, guys hit their shots. That was pivotal with this Milwaukee Bucks team. Who was going to step up and hit their shots? You knew that the shots were going to be there. They're always there. They were there last year. Now, I am the believer that this Miami Heat team last year benefited from the bubble. Yes, they went to the finals and then eventually lost to the Lakers. Now, people say, well, if they were beneficiaries of the bubble, why did they get all the way to the finals? Why didn't the Bucks? The Bucks should have been better. The Bucks were not in the bubble in the same form or fashion that the Miami Heat were in. The Bucks were dealing with stuff back home in Milwaukee. We had the Blake incident with the Kenosha police. There was a lot of certain things going on with the Bucks. The bubble didn't suit them well. You took them out of the number one seed in the East, obviously dominated all year last year. You take them out of the NBA season. You sit for 3 to 4 months. You come back, and then you're expected. You throw them into this bubble, situation where guys are sitting in a hotel room, and it didn't fit that Bucks team. That was a very old Milwaukee Bucks team. You're talking about a team that Marvin Williams, Kyle Korver, George Hill. I mean, these were older guys, and I think that bubble just didn't benefit them well. They weren't playing to their abilities. Now, the Miami Heat were younger. Bam, and Tyler Hero's coming out partying, Duncan Robinson and Jimmy Butler. The energy, it fit the Miami Heat better. Not saying that the Bucks were better than the Heat last year, but I think if that series is played in a normal setting like we've seen this year with fans, we kind of see the difference between the two. And the Bucks got better, guys. The Bucks just got better. Give credit to John Horst. Give credit to Mike Budenholzer. Give credit to the ownership. This Bucks team just improved that much. I mean, you go from Eric Bledsoe going now to my number 2 key on this series, Drew Holiday. Drew Holiday in that series averaged 15.2 points per game and 8.7 assists. I think 2 games out of that 4-game series, he had over double-digit assists. Timely shots, obviously, like Drew always is going to hit. Those mid 16, 17 footers and a 3 every now and then is what I think propelled this Bucks team over the Miami Heat. But it was a team effort. And I told you guys when I had Chuck Friemund on just a little bit ago, this Bucks team is they're that much better. They're that much different. This is not the same team. We know, again, I told you guys after a post game after one of the show, the Bucks, that wall that Toronto built in 2019 was 100% for Giannis. It was also for Eric Bledsoe. Eric Bledsoe could not score outside of the paint, and most of his scoring as a career for Eric Bledsoe is driving to the paint and scoring at the rim. So it changes the outlook on this team, not only from an offensive standpoint, from a defensive standpoint. When you're talking about the impact that Drew Holiday has, Eric Bledsoe is not going to defend Jimmy Butler for the most part. Drew Holiday was on Jimmy Butler a ton. Drew Holiday was on Duncan Robinson. Drew Holiday was on Tyler Hero. I mean, the flexibility that you have when you have a guy like Drew Holiday, again, obviously the scoring is going to be there, but the flexibility you have defensively with Drew Holiday is what changed this game, what brought in a different setting for this, a setting in which I don't think the Miami Heat were aware or well prepared to expect. Again, Drew Holiday is one of those sneaky, really good players. He's just really, really good. Like, that's the best way to describe him. Just really good. And PJ Tucker was actually quoted after one of the games talking about, like, he knew Drew Holiday was good, like, but he didn't know he was this good. Like, the things that he brings, not just from something you find on a stat sheet. He's always under control, never pressing, never worrying, never, too emotional. He's well-mannered, well-centered with every part of that game, every facet of his game, and he brings it every single night. Every night what you're going to get out of Drew Holiday. He's the impact on defense and offense. And then, again, when the trade was announced back in, I believe it was February, when the Bucks acquired PJ Tucker and they gave away DJ Wilson, we knew it, I shouldn't say we, because not everybody probably as unfortunate, fans of the Bucks or NBA fans in general, thought we were getting an aged veteran in PJ Tucker, a guy who was out of shape, didn't play much with Houston. I think we are seeing a little bit of the impact in which PJ Tucker brings on to this team. Obviously, he's going to hit your corner threes. He's not going to go out and score 10 plus points, guys. If PJ Tucker hits 1-3 a game, I'm perfectly fine with that. And he can play 25, 30 minutes, and I'd still be okay with that. That guy's, the toughness that he brings defensively. I mean, Jimmy Butler's a big dude. Like, he's a solid dude. PJ Tucker had him on a milk crate. I mean, the guy was uncomfortable every single time that Jimmy Butler had the ball. Jimmy was uncomfortable every single time matched up going against PJ Tucker. And obviously Giannis checked Jimmy a handful of times as well. Defensively, the Bucks just brought it. They just brought it. They wore him down. They took their souls and they just ripped them out. And obviously took that game 4 eventually and just walked away with it. And I think, as the playoffs go on, obviously the Milwaukee Bucks are going to be going, and probably more than likely against Brooklyn is the way that it's leaning. I think that I feel honestly pretty good about that series. And once Brooklyn does probably eventually win Friday's show, I will probably break down that series. I believe if Brooklyn wins tonight, I believe game 1 would be Monday. I've heard Saturday, but I think it's going to be Monday off the schedule, off the NBA. So the Bucks have a little bit of a break here. Hopefully guys like Thanasis gets a little bit healthy. I saw that he was doing drills, but non-contact drills. So you hope that, going forward, they can rest up a little bit, probably come out in game 1 a little rusty with this much time off. But I think Mike Budenholzer and Giannis and Drew Holiday and Chris Middleton will have a good game plan going forward and have something worked up. But we are going to transition to the Milwaukee Brewers. I apologize if you guys are on the show. We've been kind of all over the place today. It's just one of those shows where it just, unfortunately, stuff happens. I had Chuck Friemund from 97.3 The Game on. He was actually at American Family Field getting ready to cover the Brewers game for tonight. We were running into a little bit of a connection issues. So unfortunately he had to drop off. So we've kind of been all over the place. So if you guys are on and you've been on from the start, thank you for sticking with the technical difficulties. I am going to talk about these Brewers for the last 15 minutes of the show. Again, if you don't follow the show, we are on Facebook. We are on Twitter. Subscribe to the YouTube channel at Brew City Pod. Follow me on Twitter at Wisco_Brandon. I will follow you guys all back. If you guys want to ever jump on one of these shows, I also do the Bucks post-game show from here until they eventually win the NBA Finals. So, yeah, if you ever want to jump on those, don't be afraid. But again, so we're going to go into the Brewers real quick for the last 15 minutes or so of the show. Our Milwaukee Brewers with a 5-game win streak. What a phenomenal last week or so for the Brewers. They finally starting to feel like they're clicking a little bit. Overall record, they're sitting at 29-25, a game and a half out of first place, currently held by the Chicago Cubs. Again, Brewers have a favorable schedule in June. I anticipate by the end of June, they'll probably be, they're going to be playing the Cubs at the end of June, but I think that's going to be the series to see where the division is going to be headed. I think the Cubs and the Brewers, it's going to come down to those two teams. I think St. Louis is still pretty good, but I think the Cubs and Brewers are the more talented bunch. When you compare the three teams, it's going to be a 3-team race, I think, but I think it'll be between the Cubs and the Brewers. The Brewers do host the Cubs at the end of June, with a pretty favorable schedule in the month of June. So hopefully going into that series against the Cubs, we're looking down at the Cubs. But they did sweep the Nationals over the weekend. The game was canceled Friday. They did a doubleheader on Saturday. Phenomenal game. Freddie Peralta with the complete game. It was only 7 innings, but technically a complete game. Just dominant, absolutely dominant. Gave up a solo home run to Kyle Schwarber in that game, but they did eventually win. And then they won a fun game Saturday night, where the second game of the doubleheader, just kind of a wild game. The Brewers bats just absolutely woke up out of nowhere. It seemed late in that game, and Devin Williams comes on to shut them down, and they do win. And then obviously winning Sunday against Washington to complete the sweep. And then yesterday, I was actually fortunate to go to the game and absolutely take the time out to real quick thank the USO, thank the Milwaukee Brewers. They had an absolute phenomenal setting for Memorial Day yesterday. For those that tune into the show, that know me, know that I'm a veteran. Yesterday was not about me, but the USO did provide me with some tickets to the game. I ended up taking my girlfriend, her daughter, and my son, and it was my son's first time at the game, and he actually got a ball pregame from one of the players, which was absolutely awesome. It was just so much fun to be there yesterday. The weather out in Milwaukee was phenomenal. So it was a real good time. The Brewers do win that game. That was the other thing. The Brewers won the game in extras. It was kind of a wild game, but putting his stamp once again on this team, Willy Adamas. The trade was announced a couple weeks ago. I told you guys I wasn't a big fan of it. Not taking anything away from Willy Adamas. I think he's a talented dude. He's a young guy. He's under control for, I think it's 3 more years. But I think I did take into the effect, that the impact he would have with the energy. Now, I think that obviously his splits between Tampa Bay and on the road, were 2 different stories. He struggled hitting in Tampa. That can mean something. He's not struggling hitting at American Family Field. He homered yesterday to go into that game, go up 2-1 late in that game. Obviously, the Brewers let the run slip, let the lead slip, and went on into extra innings to eventually win the game. But since the Brewers have acquired Willy Adamas, now maybe there is no correlation here. Maybe it's just out of pure. They're finally turning the corner. They're 8-2 in their last 10 games. Since that Willy Adamas trade, which was exactly 10 games ago. 8-2. I don't know if there's any connection there, but I think adding a guy with energy, obviously he's talented offensively and defensively. Right now he's batting .324 with a .410 on base percentage and almost over a .969 OPS. I mean, that's phenomenal. Out of the short stop position, which, let's be honest, going into the season, we have failed. It was one of those things where if you split it down the middle versus what went right, what went wrong, the shortstop position in Milwaukee went wrong. They're on their 3rd shortstop. Hopefully with Willy Adamas, that is going to be, rectified and corrected. So he's the 3rd shortstop, but a guy I think that is going to eventually, probably be the staple at shortstop. He's going to be the everyday shortstop and a guy that hopefully gives a little bit of protection in that lineup with Christian Yelich. Now, Christian Yelich slowly, I think, trying to turn the corner. He's getting that average over 250. His on-base percentage is almost 400, and his OPS is 741. So you would hope he had a couple hits. I think he had 1 or 2 hits yesterday at the game. My stats for yesterday's game are all messed up because I was there and had the kids there, so it was kind of hard to, see, every single play. But Yelich is slowly turning the corner. You just hope from here on out he stays healthy. I think if Yelich can stay healthy, okay, you got Willy Adamas. He's obviously plugged into the 2 spot yesterday in the batting order. I think if you can ever figure out what's going on with Keston Hiura, that you got a really good offensive team. I think eventually this team offensively will figure it out. I think they will. Now, Lorenzo Cain goes back on the IL. I tweeted it out, and you can follow me on Twitter at Wisco_Brandon. I followed it. I think that this is, unfortunately, hate to say this, really, I do, and I hope I'm wrong, but I think this is the beginning of the end for Lorenzo Cain. It's another hamstring injury, another soft tissue injury. I said it before on a show. I was on a podcast. It just feels like every time Lorenzo Cain is running to first or running out a fly ball out in the outfielder, he looks like he's in pain all the time. When he gets done running, he puts his hands on his hips, and I know he's getting up there in age. I unfortunately think that Lorenzo Cain is probably starting to be at the beginning of the end of his career. Now, you would have told me that that was a possibility in the beginning of the season. I would have been like, well, that's okay. I think the Brewers could survive that because of the signing of Jackie Bradley Jr. Jackie Bradley Jr., he had a game winner a couple weeks ago, has absolutely struggled tremendously. I mean, just terribly. I mean, batting 150, a 216 on base percentage, and his slugging percentage is not much better than his on base at 269. I don't know. The guy's just extremely, extremely in a slump right now. But the Brewers did recall Tyrone Taylor. I don't know, because then you flip it over on the other side, and Avi Garcia is having probably one of his better starts to his career. I mean, his OPS is over 760. So he's hitting the ball. I believe he leads the Brewers in home runs, if I'm not mistaken. So I think if you can figure out Keston Hiura and you can figure out, health-wise, what's the long-term plan here with Lorenzo Cain and Christian Yelich. Now, Christian Yelich hasn't missed any time since his second stint coming off the IL. But again, it's a back injury. We're not really sure exactly how his body will ever respond. So it's kind of one of those things where you just kind of hope and pray that eventually he just stays healthy. But listen, guys, you got 3 guys on this starting rotation that are Cy Young candidates. Brandon Woodruff, outside of Jacob deGrom, has been the best pitcher in the major leagues. Now he leads the major leagues with the .690 whip. I mean, the guy's phenomenal. Obviously, Jacob deGrom's ERA is like .71, so you're not going to top that. But Woodruff's is about as best as it, as pretty darn good to be, where he's at. He's at 1.27 ERA. He's sitting at a 4-2 record, and I hate records for starting pitchers. Just remind me a lot of records for starting quarterbacks. Now, a lot of people go off of how many wins a quarterback has, and you can't rank or talk about greatness off of a win and loss record. Now, baseball is especially true, because how many times have we gone out and watched Brandon Woodruff and go 7 innings, 8 innings, 6.5, 6 1/3, whatever, and just dominate that whole entire game, and he gets 1 run, he gets 2 runs, and the guy just doesn't get run support. If I were to sit here and tell you that Corbin Burnes has a 2-4 2-4 record, but he has a 2.2 ERA, I mean, that's what's the story there? It's easy. He's not giving up any runs, and on the flip side, he's not getting any run support. And that's been the problem with this Milwaukee Brewers team. That's why they're only 4 games over 500. Now, they've weathered the storm. They had a gauntlet of a schedule to start the season. In April, they played 17 straight games. Their offense, unfortunately, they've hit, Lorenzo Cain, I believe this is his 3rd time on the IL. Yelich has been there twice. Guys have not been healthy for most of the season consistently. Outside of Lorenzo Cain going on the IL, I like this roster from 1 through 8, no matter what. I think, when you got Avi Garcia in that 6 hole, maybe sneaking up to the 5, Colton Wong has been a steady force in the lineup, which we did predict, but Omar Narvaez has probably been your best and most consistent hitter. So it's good to see him coming into what we thought he was going to be coming in last year. And then obviously Luis Urias, who is the ultimate now utility guy, who had the game winner yesterday. So hopefully they get going. The pressure is off Luis Urias. So you hope that, this offense can get rolling a little bit and kind of get guys healthy. And again, I just want I want to figure out what's going on with Keston Hiura, because if Keston Hiura ever figures it out, you're looking at a lineup that is just, I don't want to say dominant, but just really, really good. I mean, really good. There's not any player in that lineup eventually when Keston gets going that is going to be an easy out. I mean, Colton Juan, Omar Narvaez, Avi Garcia, Willie Adamas, Christian Yelich, Keston Hiura if he gets going, Luis Urias if he's playing third. You know, you hope that the struggling guys like Travis Shaw, like Jackie Bradley Jr., Daniel Vogelbach, you know, although a few of those guys might be on the bench, it might be time to sit Travis Shaw for a while and let Luis get going and kind of go from there. But it's going to be interesting. It's going to be a tough year in baseball, especially for the NL Central. The Cubs are just playing out of their minds, which we kind of predicted, going into the show previously with the when we started the show with the predictions. Look, the Cubs, they got the talent. They got the talent. It was all about them seeing if they could put it together and be consistent with it. The Brewers have beat the Cubs 6 out of 9 times. So you got that going for you. You don't play the Cubs again until the end of this month. Hopefully by then, you'll have a little bit of a win streak, couple wins here, get going here a little bit. Easy, favorable schedule in June, which is always good to see in the middle of the season. So hopefully that this rotation, which has been dominant, gets some run support and gets this offense going. Just when you feel like this offense gets going, the next game they score like 1 run and you're like, well, I guess that's not going as well as we thought it would be. But the last few games, the Brewers have been a little bit different in their approach. They're playing a little bit more small ball, and I don't know if that's the media pressuring Craig Counsell, with extra innings. Last 2 games that they've won in extra innings, they've actually bunted over the guy on second to third base and then eventually winning that game. So maybe it is a little bit of a different approach for Craig Counsell. They're on the base path a lot more, stealing base. Christian Yelich was caught stealing yesterday. So you think that, maybe eventually they could, do a little bit more damage offensively and just get these guys a little bit more runs. Look, they're just dealing. I mean, Freddie Peralta, who's, going into the season was your 5th starter. I mean, he was on the fringe of being a bullpen guy. He did get the 5th starter slot and obviously has proven that he belongs. So obviously he's doing great. Brandon Woodruff speaks for himself, and Corbin Burns is at a historic start to his season. It's just all about this offense. And you look down in the minor leagues and you see Zach Green tearing it up at AAA Nashville, second in all of AAA in home runs down at the third base. So maybe that's something that the Brewers look down and see, that, they could bring him up and provide a little bit of pop in that lineup. But hopefully they get going. Brewers off against Detroit tonight, 6:40 first pitch. The Bucks are off until we find out who the winner of the series is going to be against Boston and Brooklyn. And I'm assuming that it's going to be Brooklyn. Xavier drops in a comment. Thank you so much for tuning in. Do we start playing Brooklyn Saturday? I believe it's Monday. Don't quote me. I believe it's Monday. The NBA's playoff schedule is weird this year. It's just kind of off. I hope it's Saturday, but I believe I heard somewhere on the local radio today driving around that it would be Monday. But I could be wrong on that. So don't quote me on that. But again, it's very possible it's Saturday. I hope it's Saturday because it'd be a little bit more fun with the weekend, but we'll see. But I'm pretty sure we're going to end up playing Brooklyn and we'll break into that show. We'll break into the Brooklyn series and break it all down on Friday. Friday, I'm going to be joined by Kevin Holden, CBS sports director. So I'm excited to get his thoughts on the Bucks and the Brewers. He actually calls Brewers games for Telemundo, which is pretty cool. So he's a guy that obviously knows the game and follows along and lives here in Milwaukee. So we'll get his thoughts on the Bucks and the Brewers. But for all of you guys that are out there that are on the live feed, Adam, Xavier, Noah, my dad, Adam, another Adam. Thank you guys. I know that at the beginning of the show, and kind of in the middle of the show there, we ran into some technical difficulties, but we'll get Chuck Friemund back on the show and get his thoughts on the Bucks and Brewers. That will do it for today's show. I hope all of you are able to, at least in the Milwaukee area, if you're listening, or the Wisconsin area, enjoy the weather. It's phenomenal pretty much all week. Today's absolutely gorgeous. So get out there and enjoy a little bit of the weather. Have a great evening. I will talk to you guys again on Friday. Go Bucks. Let's go Brewers. Hopefully they have a good game tonight. Eric Lauer is on the mound. So as soon as you're done, listening to the show, go get ready for that Brewers game. I appreciate you guys for tuning in and giving it a listen. Again, if you are not, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Follow the show on Facebook, on Twitter, at Brew City Pod. Also, don't forget, if you're a podcast junkie like me and you like to just listen to sports, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google. There's like 100 other ones that I don't even know the names of. Jump on those, subscribe to the show. A couple weeks ago, a week ago, I talked to John McLaughlin, the John McLaughlin interview, Milwaukee Bucks legend. The interview with him was just phenomenal. He talked to me for like an hour. The guy was awesome. Go check it out. Leave a review. If I sucked, tell me I sucked. If I was great, would greatly appreciate to tell you that it was great. So again, thank you guys for on the live feed. If you're listening to this podcast, wherever you get your podcasts, thank you so much for giving the show a listen. It's absolutely unbelievably appreciated. I cannot thank you guys enough. But that'll do it for today's show. I'm going to go out on Adam's comment, and we're just going to pull this up on here. If you're listening on your, after the show's been off the air, you're not going to know that Adam put a comment on there. It says Bucks in 6 over Nets. That's how I'm ending the show, Adam, because I agree with you. The Bucks will bring the defense and they will dominate the Brooklyn Nets. But until next time, till Friday, I will talk to you guys then. Please be safe. Have a great work week. Go Bucks, go Brewers, and I will talk to you guys later. See ya. Hey guys, thank you so much for taking the time out to listen to the Brew City Lounge. I am your host, Brandon. It means everything that you guys have tuned in and listened to this show. Please, wherever you are, do not forget to subscribe to wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Google, Spotify, and so much more. Don't forget, follow us on Facebook and Twitter at Brew City Pod. One more thing, do not forget to hit subscribe on that YouTube channel. Again, thank you for your support. Thank you for giving the show a listen. I hope you'll be back. I'll talk to you soon.